good, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. My name is James Jackson. If you're new to my channel, I do tips, tricks, news, and reviews for the film and video making industry. So if this is content that you like, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that bell so you can stay up to date on all the content going forward. If you see my voice sort of go to craggly, please forgive me. I'm getting over a cold. The last couple of days, starting in the New Year's, it's been a interesting take. New Year started off like really interesting, and I'll just leave it at that. I know I'm a little bit late with this news, and I do apologize, but I've sort of been ramming really down hard. I've been basically writing a bunch of film projects that I'm hoping to start putting out this year. We actually are trying to get ready to start the next project, the first of these passion projects that I have, in the next couple of weeks. So I've been pretty much laser focused working on that. So that's why I'm also a little bit late. Well, technically I'm not late with this because I actually did talk about the S5II with my good buddy Simon, aka Ordinary Filmmaker. He actually invited me to be a part of his live stream, and I was there for that. And if you guys did miss the live stream, I'll leave a link in the description. It is a 2-hour live stream. We did some pre-discussions, me, him, as well as another guest, Grant, and it was a fun conversation. And then we watched the announcement, and then we also had a conversation afterwards. So a lot of great discussion overall by it. So I encourage you all to absolutely go check it out. But yes, the S5II has been announced. Panasonic has been teasing this camera for over the past couple months. Also, there's been leaks going on of what it is, and now we finally know what it is. And obviously, the biggest thing, and really what this announcement is that this is basically a statement from Panasonic that they are taking the autofocus game seriously, and they finally have added phase detection autofocus. They haven't got rid of dual pixel, it's still in the camera, but now it's also added phase detection into it, and that's really the brunt of it. Also, they did announce a second S5II. It is the S5IIX, which is supposedly the more professional feature that may offer some ProRes options, ProRes RAW external recording, as well as some live streaming and Ethernet support. That's all going to be coming in the other version, and that will be coming out near the second half of the year. And what's cool about it is that the price is pretty much the same for the S5II. It is the same price, which is around I believe it's $1,900, and then the new S5X is going to be priced just $200 more, essentially the price of the GH6, which is around $2,200. But let's just go ahead and dive into the big elephant in the room, and basically what this thing is really about, and that is the fact of the new phase detection autofocus. Based on all the videos that I've seen videos by CVP, Pro AV TV, I've seen DP Review, Gerald Undone, everybody who's is a bit more important than me. But they done extensive testing. Panasonic invited them all, and the consistency is that it is a major step and a major improvement over the previous Panasonic autofocus. And from the video releases that they've shown me, it is definitely thing. And the key thing, what appears to be the key thing, is somewhat gone. And I say somewhat gone because Tony and Chelsea Northam also released a video that shows that pulsing seems to still be there. This is going to be, since this is Panasonic's first, camera into phase detection autofocus, this is something that is probably going to be rough. I don't see it being the best autofocus. Some people are already claiming that to be. I don't necessarily think that is. But Panasonic is in the game, and that's the main thing about it. They're in the phase detection autofocus. For those of you that may not know why was this so important, the fact is that the previous autofocus system, Depth from Defocus, is a contrast-based autofocus system. And the problem with a contrast-based autofocus system is this. So let's say my hand is the subject that we're going to try to focus on. So the camera would come in, see, oh, all right, here, this is the subject that needs to be focused. But let's be sure, we're going to make sure we're going to go back behind it, and it's like, yep, this is the subject. So in terms of photos, this is great because it delivers very, very accurate photos that you could snap with. The problem is that with video, that's doing that constantly. So it's constantly checking itself, and when it does that, you see this pulsing effect whenever that happens, especially when you're shooting with really fast, wide open glass, and you got something like this light bulb that would be like over here. This would be like pulsing like crazy in the background, and this has been consistent, and it's very distracted, and it really does ruin a lot of shots. But with phase detection, or even with Canon, like right now with dual pixel autofocus, you don't see the pulsing happening unless the subject is moving. Like if I was to move right now, yeah, it would be pulsing, and it's going back and forth, back and forth. So that's the benefit of phase or dual pixel autofocus. So the fact that Panasonic has finally done this is a huge step and should not be taken lightly. However, I do have my concerns with it, because from the videos that I've seen, there's two major problems. One, as I mentioned, in Tony and Chelsea Northrum's video, they clearly show that the pulsing is still happening, but also it's only been in like super fast, super wide open shooting scenarios that it seems to be happening. So it's not that big of a deal, because I saw another one where Carl from Pro AV TV and others showed that the pulsing is not really there. But the bigger problem to me from the videos that I have seen is that the focus, and I don't know if this is the camera or if this is the lenses that are right now currently in the Panasonic ecosystem, but what I am seeing is like this stepping transition whenever anybody moves. It doesn't feel smooth. Like watch the background. If you see the background, and I'm using a Sigma, which is not as smooth if I was using a native Canon, especially a native RF Canon glass, it's not as smooth. But as you can see, it's still kind of smooth as I move back and forth, unless I go really fast and really fast, you can sort of see. But if I'm just moving slow, it's sort of a more organic focus shifting in the background. Whereas all the videos I've seen of the Panasonic, it's like very steppy, and that to me is actually just as distracting as the pulsing is. So again, let's also keep in mind, the camera's not officially released. I don't know if these were all production models. These may just be pre-production models, so there may be another firmware coming they'll update before they release the camera. So, and also, even if that is the case, I am a firm believer that you should test out cameras yourself by renting it, trying it out, maybe getting somebody who has it. But at the end of the day, you should always try to test out the cameras first before making any final judgment. So I will wait judgment on that myself personally until I get my hands on the S5II. There isn't really much different about it. There is now a new 6K recording option, though it is only in HEVC, which is the bane of my existence. I can't stand it. It's for me personally, and this is just me, I can't stand it. It does horrible on my computers. I'm always spending way more time generating proxies so I can actually build and edit and build it up. And then when I get the grading, I have to switch it out. But the options are there, so which a lot of cameras can't say that. The fact that they have a whole bunch of anamorphic options, but again, they're all in the H.265 mode. So while that is great, and the fact that it can also shoot open gates, the fact that codec is really the hindrance to me. Having said all that, I have to say, look, this is a very impressive camera, especially for a camera that's roughly around $2,000. the fact that it can give you all these recording options, the fact that it does have 10-bit recording options, albeit some of them are 10-bit 420 and some of them are 10-bit 422, but it gives you a lot of these options, which some cameras don't even give you those options at all. So I gotta give kudos where kudos is due regarding that. And look, the image out of Panasonic's V-Log and V-Gamut, which this one has as well, it's such a beautiful thing. It's the reason why I love the GH6, which is right behind me right here. I love the image that comes out of this camera, and you guys know about that. So look, the image quality is stellar. Looks like it's going to have great low light capabilities, which I really love. But that's about it. So there isn't really a lot of upgrades. And now, maybe let's talk. But maybe that's it's more the S5II. That's the camera more for me, because that one actually looks like it's going to have ProRes options, and it's like, yeah. And when they made the announcement, it's like, yeah, 5.8K ProRes recording. I was like, nice. It's only capable of doing it externally to an SSD, and the only internal ProRes option is 1080. And let's be clear, a lot of this has to do with two options, but one major, and they're both hardware issues. And so anybody that say maybe they'll update in the firmware, very unlikely it will happen. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm saying it's very close to impossible, because this is a hardware limitation, not a software, and software and firmwares can only fix software issues. This is not a software issue, it's a hardware issue. And the hardware issue is the fact that it's still recording to SD cards. Now granted, it's the fastest form of SD cards we could do right now, which will allow you to shoot V90. But right now, they're not fast enough to deal with shooting the highest resolutions that this camera is capable of at video frame rates. It's just, right now, the cards just are not fast enough. But really the biggest, and to me, this is right now Panasonic's biggest Achilles heel for its full frame lineup, is the processor. I'm assuming probably most of y'all have seen Gerald Undunn's video covering the S5II, but if you haven't, he did some great research, and I'll leave a link to his video in the description as well. Okay guys, so I kind of made a boo-boo here. So actually, I know I said it was Gerald Undunn where I got this information regarding the frame rate or the readout speed. I was incorrect, and I misspoke. It wasn't Gerald Undunn, but I did remember seeing it, and I finally figured out where I saw this from, and this was actually from Tony and Chelsea Northrum. They're the ones that actually brought it up, and they did a rolling shutter test, and they found out that the readout speed appears to be 1/48 frames a second. So it seems like the readout speed using the full sensor readout is 48 frames a second, which also explains why the S5 Mark II cannot shoot 60 frames per second using the full sensor, because it can't recognize those frames. It's not fast enough to recognize those frames. So that's where the information is, and I just wanted to make that quick correction here. But essentially the problem is the fact that the processor is not be able to read out the sensor fast enough for a lot of features. And this is, to me, the biggest issue right now, even more so than autofocus was. I'm glad they got face detection. I know for a lot of people, this was the big thing. This was the thing that stopped them. So I get it. But for me, the issue of the processors not being fast enough to read out the sensors to do higher frame rates using the full sensor, that's the real problem, along with the fact that they're still, for some reason, still using SD cards. And that's really the hindrance, because there's a lot of cameras right now that will give you all eye. You could shoot all the different recording options in all eye, and you could shoot them at high frame rates. So that's something that honestly Panasonic has to address, especially for their full frame lineups, because they got serious competitors to deal with, versus something like the GH6, which has a much faster readout, but it also has half the size of the S5 sensor. So it doesn't have to work as hard to read out all that much data. And this is going to lead me to my question that I've seen a lot. I saw this when I was doing my live stream with Ordinary Filmmaker, and I've asked myself this, and I've heard people, it's like, oh man, I'm debating if I should, sell my GH6 and get the S5II or the S5IIX, or maybe I should wait for the G7. So I'm going to make an entire separate video just talking about that sort of mentality, because I think it's getting a bit problematic for us as filmmakers. But that's a different subject to take. But however, I will say this for me personally. I cannot tell you what to do with yourselves. I can just tell you what I will do. Me as a GH6 owner, I right now, in what's currently announced with the S5II and the S5IIX, I have no intentions of upgrading to either one of those. Even though it has a bigger sensor, even though, yes, it has a better dynamic range performance than the GH6, I'm still going to stick with the GH6. And the reason being is because I can do way more recording options internally with this camera than I can with the S5II or the S5IIX. And until they address those issues with both media and processors, because to me that's the big thing with them, and what's holding them back on their full frame is the fact their processors are not fast enough, as well as that they're not using fast enough media. Whereas this is using CF Express, and it's using a processor designed for the sensor that can read fast enough to do all these recorded options. Granted, it's very possible we may see this upgrade in something like the S5II and the S5II in those lines. I hope so, because I would be very disappointed if they don't make those upgrades. But look, I know I've been very critical of the announcements. However, let's not get over the fact that this is a very important step Panasonic had to make, and I'm glad that they made this step, because now they can actually sit at the table with Canon, with Sony. I'm not saying that their autofocus is better than Canon or better than Sony or on par. Again, I don't have the camera, so I can't speak. And everybody has their own opinions and based on how they work. However, I will say this: they've now entered but they're now able to sit at the table of bringing what they've already have in their systems: anamorphic options, professional recording video features, professional cinema and video features such as shutter angle, such as waveforms, such as proper exposure tools, and other things that they've built in their systems long ago and have continually to put in there. They're now in this camera along with phase detection autofocus. So even if phase detection autofocus is not as good as the others, it's at least in the ballpark that now people can actually consider and make it their driving force camera, which is absolutely critical. And I'm glad they did it with the S5II at such a price range, because this is their entry-level camera. They can now get people into their ecosystem. That's the big thing that for Panasonic, is that now they got a camera that can make people consider their ecosystem, and they've been working hard to release a slew of lenses that I'm still, while they're all solid lenses, I'm still waiting for Panasonic or anybody a part of, sorry Jared, I need to take this. Basically, I need to see a wow factor lens, because say what you want, Sony and Canon have built wow factor lenses in their mirrorless ecosystems. Even Nikon has built a wow factor lens in their mirrorless line. Panasonic needs to do that. I don't see that right now from Panasonic. I'm waiting. While I want solid glass, which is what we're seeing from them, I also want a wow factor that can really entice people to try out their ecosystem. So hopefully we can. But these are my thoughts on the Panasonic S5II and the S5IIX announcement. Let me know what your thoughts are. Are you excited for this camera? Are you going to get this? Do you have a GH6 and you're planning to sell it for this? I'm not, but maybe you are. Let me know, leave your comments below, join the discussion, and also, once again, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And as always, until next time, take care, everyone.